So we're at our third stop for the day, not counting lunch. And it's a place called Tzippori, which doesn't merit a mention at all in the Bible, but happens to be the Roman city that is right next to Nazareth. And while Nazareth at the time of Christ was a dinky little town that even Jews were like, what good could come out of there? Sepphoris was actually a Roman city. Bear in mind, the area was a Roman garrison, but this is where the Romans were, the folks with money who were in the government, and it's presumed that Joseph would have worked as a carpenter and stonemason on the houses over here because this is where the clients could be found. So in a way it has its own measure of importance that Nazareth, now overrun with churches and as opposed to just simple archaeological finds that indicate, there's something here. This has some significance in Jesus' younger life. The town itself well predates Jesus and his father, being established during the Iron Age and named Kitrom in scripture, supposedly. Then in the Hellenistic period, as you can see here, it was named Sepphoris, and it has taken on a number of different names along the way, but it still keeps something similar to that nowadays. There is a modern town called Tzippori with a T. Sepphoris was destroyed shortly before the time of Christ because there had been a rebellion in Galilee a few years before. In fact, Gamaliel, one of the leaders of the Sanhedrin, mentions the uprising in his comment to the Sanhedrin in the 4th or 5th chapter of Acts. I forget which one specifically. But Sepphoris was razed to the ground at that point, but by the time Christ was born, they were rebuilding it as a Roman town. And so there was a lot of construction to be done, which meant Joseph had a lot of business here. And since Jesus was learning his father's trade, as was done in those days, he would have been coming down here. There's nothing in the Bible specifically saying this, but the implication is there. So, in any case, this is the heart, the cardio of Sepphoris, the main street, if you will. I apologize if my pronunciation of the town is inconsistent, but I've heard it pronounced as Sepphoris, Tzippori, Tzippora, like Moses' wife. So I'm not entirely sure which one is the right one. I'm just going to bull on with whatever I can say. Here in Sepphoris, just to remind you that this is a pagan area, this is a mosaic showing the story of Orpheus in the underworld. Now, this wouldn't happen in a Jewish area, but it's also indicative of just how wealthy some of these people were. To have a mosaic of that size and those tiny little mosaic squares is a sign of great wealth, and people now, just as then, wanted to display that sort of thing. I mean, think about it. How different is that from bragging about having the largest and most detailed projection television set? Now, this area isn't actually a home in which these mosaics appear, but rather something of a warehouse. In some respects, you would call it a display showroom. And our guide has been talking about those pillars that are depicted here. They're referred to as Nile meters, and they basically determine the level of the water in the Nile. Why they're here? Well, I thought it had to do with the fact that maybe the Nile is considered to be exotic, much like you would hang pictures from various foreign places. But no, it becomes basically because this is where most of the best mosaic artists come from. And so they depict what they know, and people liked it, so they kept going. The showroom also has some mosaics that are very well preserved that have basically geometric designs on them, including, as our tour guide has pointed out, a couple with swastikas on them, which, again, means nothing but is just a geometric design that's been since co-opted by Well, I don't need to go into more details on that. One of the more amusing things about this mosaic showcase is the fact that in the first century you had people who were very wealthy showing off that wealth by having mosaics on their floors. And in this day and age, in the 21st century, in order to show off one's wealth, they have various families saying, in honor of this person or that, we contributed X amount of money to restore these things. So the mosaics are still a status symbol and a way to show how rich you are, no matter what century you're in. So we're heading back now on the east-west road. This is not the Cardio, this is Deuterio? Something like that. I think I got the wrong word, but it's also one of the other main streets. We don't know what kind of construction Joseph was working on, but we do know that there was plenty to be done around here at his time. And Jesus was here at his side, observing, helping out, interacting with some of the other kids perhaps, and becoming somewhat familiar with Gentile life as well. It could be that he developed a heart for the Gentiles by being exposed to them as a person, for which, as a Gentile myself, I think I should be quite grateful. As well as being a Roman garrison, Nazareth and Sepphoris also had one other thing going for it. This was one of the centers of viniculture here in the northern region of Israel. Judea, I guess, at that time. Of course, that was torn down with the destruction of Jerusalem, the diaspora of the Jews, and furthermore, with the growth of Islam, viniculture basically died out until this past century, so this is just now being revived.